If you have a cell phone or a pager, please turn it off or set it to stun. Star Trek. It's a long time ago. Baruch Dayan HaEmet, we praise the Judge of Truth. We gather to recall our dear Steve Comet, and words will be spoken in a few minutes of him, beginning with Psalm 121. Asa enai el haharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka ve'yorech balayla. Adonai shmarcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai shmar tzeitcha uvoecha me'ata va'ad olam. I lift my eyes to the mountains, from whence cometh my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. The Lord will not let your foot give way, your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian, he is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. Death has taken our beloved Steve Comet, Shaul Avraham ben Yisrael v'Naami. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Steve's love that united so many people in life and which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of his heart and his mind, which brought joy and happiness and which now are a precious remembrance. For all of these and more, we give our thanks to Almighty God. It is a time of grief. It is a time of sadness. And so once again, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures from Sefer Tehillim, from the book of Psalms. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator. In light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. Together in the English, let us recite the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We have two to eulogize our dear Steve. First, his son Noah will come and speak of his dear father, and then Rabbi Fred Eisenberg, his rabbi of very, very long standing, will come and eulogize Steve as well.
Thank you, Rabbi. And on my own behalf and on that of my family, thank all of you for coming today. When I was growing up, my father, in his darkly humorous way, used to envision for me and my brothers what he wanted his funeral to be like. And I have to tell you, it was never an occasion like this. More typically, it involved a shovel, some dirty jokes, and a ceremonial watching of his favorite movie, Blazing Saddles. I don't think any of us are ever going to let that happen. But as I was thinking about what to say today, I found myself pulled in two different directions. Half of me was drawn toward what many sons would want to say, and I will say that right now, but only briefly. Dad, I love you. Thank you for all you taught me, all you've given me, and all you've done for me. I had an extraordinarily memorable childhood, and that's largely because of you. I always felt loved. So did Mom. So did my brothers, and so did your grandchildren. Now, I could stand here this afternoon and give a sentimental speech that's about my dad, about his acts of charity, about how he kept his business going and supported so many people, how he handed it down from his father to his son. But I'm not going to do that because the other half of me pulled a lot more strongly, and I think that's because my father's spirit was pulling me that way too. You who knew him best know that he wouldn't want tears today. My dad, I think it's safe to say he was a clown at heart, and he'd want us to remember him for his craziness, for the laughter that he brought into the world, and even some of his eccentricities. And there were many, yes there were. And that's why we loved him, after all, right? Because say what you will about him, Steve Comet was an interesting guy. Like interesting on a scientific level, like in the way a new species is interesting or a tribe that you just discovered in the jungle. More on that in a second, but first a little more seriously, I do want to say that nobody should ever have to suffer from Parkinson's disease, nobody. But in landing on my dad, I think Parkinson's made an especially cruel choice. The disease affects everyone differently, but in some sense it's always a kind of imprisonment, imprisoning you in your own body, and forcing unwanted movements, suggesting unwanted thoughts. And I really can't think of anyone I've ever met who was constitutionally less designed to cope with such an ailment than my dad. My father hated to be confined. And I don't just mean that he was claustrophobic, he was, but I mean that he hated confinement in all of its forms, physical and especially behavioral. If there was a rule, a boundary, my dad wanted to break it, exceed it, deconstruct it. And this temperament, from what I've heard, was at times a challenge to his loving, and I'll say it, long-suffering parents and siblings. And I expect to many other people in this room. I mean, Lord knows his irreverence and his stubbornness could be maddening to my mom and to my brothers. I remember conversations that would go on for an hour and a half just about where we were going to go eat dinner. And it was my dad that was instigating that. I think we can happily forgive him all of that now. I, for one, respect the fact that my father was a man with convictions, even when I didn't share them. He always had an opinion. You always knew where you stood with him. But my father's dislike of confinement also led to the kind of delightful oddities that I want to focus on. And I'll probably always laugh to think about these things, even if I can even get some of you to crack a smile today, then I think I'll have done right by him, even if I don't tell any dirty jokes, which I won't. Because my father simply would not be confined by social norms. And this led to behavior that we might see lovingly, forgivingly, as affronts to all common sense and frankly to much common decency. This, after all, was a man who ate Oreo cookies with tuna salad. It's true. And so be glad that I am not today asking you all to take this unholy sacrament. The thought did cross my mind. This was a man who ate steaks so rare you could almost hear them mooing, and restaurant employees often tried to push back at him, but he would just disarm them with one of his X-rated jokes. Thank God he was a good tipper. And he embodied so many contradictions, we sometimes wondered how one man could contain such multitudes. He would take us out to the shooting range in the morning to shoot AK-47s and M16s, and then he'd spend the afternoon building toy model kits, or he'd go feed a baby goat at a petting zoo. And the goats, by the way, were a lot safer to approach than the lion he apparently reached out to pet one time. Thankfully, it only urinated on him. And there was also, I just remembered this morning, that the howler monkey, you guys remember the howler monkey? That he tried to reach through the bars of the cage of this monkey, I don't know why, I guess to pet it, and it pulled on his finger. It almost pulled his finger off. I don't know who howled louder, my dad or the howler monkey, frankly. That was unpleasant. He loved boating. Some of you know that. Some of you certainly were out on the boat with him. And he bought increasingly large power boats, but he never really learned how to dock them, did he? Never bothered. I can remember on more than one occasion being rescued by whoever just happened to be ashore and could catch a line to pull us in. And thank God, because we'd probably still be floating out on Lake Erie right now if it weren't for those good Samaritans. And yet, in spite of that, he was a downright fanatic about parallel parking cars. He taught all three of his boys, how to do this by forcing us to parallel park in the tiny entrance archway of the Beechwood Public Library during non-business hours, of course. And I remember during one such lesson when I was dangerously close to putting a fender through the library's expensive-looking glass door, I remember a Beechwood police officer showed up, and he demanded to know what on earth we were doing. And I presume the officer had his sights set on a DUI, because why else would anybody be parking a car in the library entryway? And so when my dad told him what we were doing, the police officer shook his head in total disbelief and said, "I'll be here in 20 minutes. You better not be." Needless to say, I'm actually a pretty good parallel parker now. This was a man who, as many of you know, he drove high-end Italian sports cars, wearing dirty sweatpants and a t-shirt with holes in it. A man who paired dry martinis with Fritos and Dobermans with Dachshunds. I have so many stories, and really so few of them are appropriate to share. And I'm sure in this room there are probably thousands of such stories altogether. He used to introduce me to strangers and tell them I was a fighter pilot. And I would keep that ruse going just to avoid embarrassment. This is one of my favorite stories. There was the time when he was thrilled to have caught this snake in our backyard. My dad loved animals, hence the goats and the lions and the howler monkeys. And he brought this snake that he had caught in the backyard into the house to show me. I mean, he was ecstatic until I pointed out that the snake was dead, and clearly had been for several days. That was interesting story. And my father's antics made for legendary family vacations. Of course, settling into the rental car always meant hearing him deliver the entire airline safety spiel, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard. And this included all the warnings about overhead bins and exit rows. And eventually, he actually padded this routine with an airplane seatbelt, an oxygen mask, and a safety card. He got these things. I'm still not entirely convinced that he didn't just steal them. So to the police officers in the room, just pretend you didn't hear that. And then it was off to do what the Comet family did on vacation when my dad was at the helm, getting video footage of the strangest things that we could find. Often enough, this involved chasing emergency vehicles to see where they were headed. I guess this is something he inherited from his grandfather, right, Mom? Yeah. One time, this took us right into the middle of a bank robbery and hostage crisis in Los Angeles. And I'll still never forget the helicopters. I was panicking. I think I was 6 or 7 years old. There were helicopters circling overhead. The police had these snipers crouching in the shrubbery. And there, with his camcorder in his hand, walking right into the middle of the action, was my dad filming it all. Filming the LAPD, because they love that, right? I swear our family vacation videos are truly peculiar. They're probably admissible as some kind of evidence. I really think so. Certainly as evidence that my dad was a nut. But through it all, he was our nut. The one who made those formative years for me and my brothers so wildly different from what was expected, who taught us to look at the world for ourselves and not to do what everyone else did just because it was customary. And my dad was unconfined too in his love for his friends and his family. especially for my mom, the goose to his bear. My mom, who found a way to love him in spite of his silliness, or maybe at least in part because of it, who stood by him during these past several years, which were so incredibly challenging. Mom, no one ever wanted to have to ask so much of you, least of all Dad. And no one is now more grateful to you than your sons and their wives. Dad would have wanted you to enjoy the next chapter of your life, and everyone here is going to make sure that you do. And in closing, I have two things to ask of all of you. First, please take a moment today, if you can, to remember a time when my father made you laugh. Because I think if we can all sustain such a memory, then we will surely be keeping his spirit alive in the way that he would have hoped. Second, you'll forgive me for this. I mentioned several minutes ago my father's favorite movie, Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles. It is a great movie. And in one memorable scene, the governor, who's played by Mel Brooks himself, demands that his staff express their approval of his harebrained schemes with a hearty harumph. So what do you all think? Do you think Steve Comet deserves a harumph on the count of three? What do you say? Okay, then let's give that man a harumph. 1, 2, 3, harumph. Thank you.
Steve, you're not coming to have dinner with us this weekend? How could you do this to us? We expected it, but not. We wanted to see you today, but not here. I mean, after all, we've been friends for over 40 years. We met in the Heights Library by the records. He likes certain records and tapes, and later even DVDs. And I do too. And so we ran into each other over 40 years ago at the Cleveland Heights Library. He also liked boating. I had a bigger boat than he did, so he liked my big boat. We used to go out when we could. Hey, how can I put it? Steve, you have let me down. I am now without my better friend. My best friend is there. All right, guys. It says, do not touch or move the microphone. I can't not do that because the sign is there. And he would have moved it. Of course. You know, what do I just say? One of the most wonderful individuals I have ever met is Steve Comet. He will always be alive as far as I'm concerned. He will not have gone away. He liked steak. We used to meet from time to time and get a good steak together. Or when he got older, I guess sometimes he shifted to chicken. But that was all. He got old.
Tell him about the cars.
I will. He had the most beautiful Lamborghini I have ever seen. Now, I was a car buff myself in the younger days. I had a Chrysler CUDA, full race, Hurst shifters, and white leather seats in a black car, which, by the way, was stolen from my garage, and I never quite got them back. I got used ones, but it was never the same. Being car buffs, we enjoyed life. I think his Lamborghini was the most beautiful car I have ever seen. And I'm going to miss that car. It's gone. But he's gone, which makes it much more difficult. I'm not going to discuss anything religious because he came from a very Orthodox family and he knew what was good and what was not good. And we enjoyed discussing things that we would not discuss in public. That's true. So, to you, his family, you had, and will always have, it's not a matter of had and not had, you had one of the most wonderful individuals on the face of the earth. He was fun. He was superior intellectually. He was exciting personally. And he was a good friend. I will miss his friendship. I will miss his mishigas. Nobody is more Michigana than Steve. Notice I said is. He is here. Intellectually, he is here. I believe in life after death. So, Steve, if you're here wherever you are, enjoy life after death. Maybe we could do a special, play something that we could do for him. Is there anything of significant interest that we can put in his casket?
Not now.
Not now. Oh, all right.
We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about, we have to do that, yes. Because, what, yeah. We can't let you go without something special. So, I am saying goodbye to you guys, not to Steve. He will be with us as long as we live because we will never forget this instant, Michigana guy. I love you, Steve, and you notice I did not wear a coat. In fact, I came mismatched in your honor. How could I not? Okay, Rabbi, you wear the tie with the cars on it in his honor.
To all of those words spoken in prayer, let us say Amen. A brief Torah verse for Steve. In Sefer Shemot, in the book of Exodus, chapter 35, our ancestors are given the command to bring materials to build the tabernacle, the Mishkan, in the portable structure in the wilderness. And our ancestors brought the materials, and the Torah goes on to tell us that in Exodus chapter 36, that they just continued to bring and bring and bring and bring. They did not know when to stop, apparently. And so in Exodus chapter 36, verse 6, Moses tells the children of Israel, let no man or woman bring further efforts toward the building of the sanctuary. Steve was like our ancestors. Our ancestors didn't know when to stop. Steve did not know when to stop. And in so many ways that are wonderful, he was generous to the congregation and others. He gave the congregation a cotton candy maker, a snow cone machine, a real snow cone machine, a popcorn maker, a real popcorn maker like in a movie theater, because apparently he used to have parties at Die Cut and use those things. And then when people stopped doing those parties, he gave them to the shul. And we used them for religious school 3-4 times a year. This Friday night we'll have popcorn. So in so very many ways, he is going to be missed. We offer condolences to his wife and children, grandchildren. His brother Jordy is here and wife Gila. He was the firstborn of there are 4. He's got a sister Aviva, her husband Bob. They're in Israel, Eretz Israel. His sister Tovi passed away in 1991. Her widower David, we offer condolences to him and Jordy and Gila. He had, through his siblings, many nieces and nephews and grandnieces and grandnephews. It's a large, extended family, and probably in many ways as eccentric and loving as Steve. He breathed his last on Sunday, and so we give thanks to God for the gift of this life, and now there is no more deterioration, there's no more pain, there's just rest and wholeness and peace. His soul is returning to God to be with the souls of his ancestors and our ancestors, and we learn this in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7. The dust returns to the earth as it was, the spirit returns to God who gave it. We will place his body in the ground, which is the vessel for the soul, and we will place earth upon the casket as we help escort him to his final resting place. We have a couple of prayer books, old prayer books in the casket that are going with him, because not only is it a mitzvah to escort your loved one to his final resting place, the body, but also holy books of our tradition. Mention should also be made of his love for the dogs. He loved his dogs and many other things as well. So one day, Arlene, your soul will join his in Olam Haba, the world to come, which is in an eternal time. It's not a place, it's a time. And all of us will be together with him in that eternal time, Olam Haba. So as you think of Steve, think of the many things that you have heard this morning, this afternoon, and let us thank God for the gift of this life. He was only 72 years old, and in this day and age, it's a young age. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevarach. The Lord hath given, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru yimru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. May God, who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, cause peace to rain down upon us, upon all Israel, and upon the soul of our dearly departed Steve Comet. And let us say, Amen. Please rise for El Malei Rachamim. Into your care, O God, we entrust the spirit of Steve Comet, Shaul Avraham ben Yisrael v'Naami. For you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, O God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim u'tohorim, gezohar harakia mazirim, et nishmat Shaul Avraham ben Yisrael v'Naami shehalach le'olamo ba'al harachamim yastirehu b'seiteh kenafav le'olamim vayitzror b'tzror ha'chaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato, bi'anuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar, Amen. Compassionate God, the eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our dear Steve Comet. He has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. We will go in procession in a moment to the cemetery. We're going to Hillcrest Cemetery. We will recite Kaddish at the grave. And tonight at 8 o'clock, we'll do a little minyan. And we will recite Kaddish for him at Temple Israel Ner Tamid and other congregations as well. Our services are every Friday night at 7:30, so we will recite Kaddish for him then and there. The family has asked if you wish to make donations in his loving memory. Donations are suggested to Be in Motion, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, or Temple Israel Ner Tamid. So please consider those first among the places you will donate. This concludes our service here at the funeral home.